Hello and welcome to Prime Code Media. In this video, I'll be discussing the Bootstrap containers. Containers are the most basic Bootstrap element and are required when we are using the grid system, which we've already discussed in one of our previous episodes. Here, the documentation explains how they work. For example, here it says containers are used to contain, pad, and sometimes center the content within them. Now, Bootstrap comes with three different containers. The first one is this one, class of container, which sets the maximum width at each responsive breakpoint. So what makes this container different from the other two is that its width changes relative to the size of the viewport. Let's put this into practice. Inside my code editor, I am going to add a container. First, I'm going to put inside here a div like so. I'm going to add a div and I'm going to give this div a class of container. So this div is going to have a class of container like so, and then inside this container I'm going to add a level 1 heading and h1, and then I'm going to give this a name of container, and then I'm also going to add a paragraph. Let me add a p tag. Inside here I'm going to paste in some lorem ipsum text like so. So what else do I need to do? Okay, I'm going to give this container of mine a background color, and I'm going to do that inside my style sheet here. And to pick a background color, I'm going to use color hunt.co. So let me see which background color. So let me just pick this one. Okay, I've just copied the hex code. I'm going to paste it inside the style sheet. First, I'm going to use the class name container. Remember, the class name has to be preceded by the dot and then a set of curly braces. Inside here, I'm going to include the CSS property, background color, and the value will be the color that I want to give to my container. And then I'm going to paste this hex code here, and it is important that the hex code is preceded by the hashtag sign and then that semicolon to close things off. I'm going to save everything here and then exit my style sheet and go to the index.html file where my container is at, and then save my work here. I'm then going to go to my browser and see if everything is rendered accordingly. Refresh. Now we have this container right here. So I'm going to inspect this container. And now I want you to pay attention or focus on the maximum width of this container. At the moment, it is 1140, and I want you to see what happens when I make the screen smaller, or if I change the size. I'm going just to squeeze this screen to make it smaller like so. The maximum width has to change. I'm just going to make sure that it's correctly selected. Okay, let's go back. As you can see, the maximum width changes. Let's see, at around this point, as you can see, the maximum width has changed to 960. Okay, let's go again and see. At around this point, it is now at 720 pixel, and this confirms what I was just saying earlier, and that is the width of this container changes relative to the size of the viewport, and this is one of the different types of the containers that the Bootstrap offers us. Now let's go and take a look at the other type of containers that we have available to us here. It is this one, container breakpoint. So here, this one, with this one, we specify the width. So we say the width will be at 100% until a specified breakpoint. So we can specify the breakpoint. For example, if we can say, for example, our container is going to take up 100% of the of the width of the viewport up to a small breakpoint. We'll have to use a small, or SM for small. And if our decision is to say we want our container to take up 100% of the viewport up to a large viewport, then we will use the container LG. So let's just use container LG as an example. I'm going to go back into my code editor. I'm going to copy everything as is here and then paste it here so that we have a second container. And then what I am going to change here is container LG, and then I'm also going to add LG here. And inside my style sheet, I'm also going to copy this CSS code and paste it here. I'm going to change this class name from container to container LG, and then the background color is also going to change because now we are dealing with a different container. I'm going to go back to color hunter CO to pick a different background. Let me just pick this one, and then I am going to paste it inside here, the hex code, and then let me include that hashtag sign which is required. I'm going to save my work and then go back to the index.html to check if everything is fine. So everything is fine here. Let me also save, and let's go now back to the browser and refresh. Now we have the second container, the purple one. And then remember what we are saying with this one. We are saying that our container is going to take up 100% of the viewport up to a large breakpoint. So let's go and start this from a small viewport. So on a small viewport, the containers look the same. Both of them are touching the edge of the viewport, as you can see. But you'll see that when we enlarge the screen at around this point here, the large or the purple the purple container now leaves the edge of the screen, or we get a breakpoint at around this point here. As you can see, at around this point it becomes the same as the first container, which is the blue container. So this is the difference between the containers. So this one, the first one that we added, its size, or the maximum width, or the width changes relative to the size of the screen. But here we are able to be specific at which point we want the breakpoint to be at. With this one, we were specific to say we want our container to take up 100% of the width up until the large breakpoint. So I'm just going to create another container here. I'm just going to copy this one and paste it here. So here I'm just going to change large to small, so meaning that this container is going to take up 100% of the width up to the small breakpoint. So let me also change SM here for small. The lorem ipsum text is the same for all of them. Inside my style sheet here, I'm going to copy this CSS code and paste it here so that I'm able to give, oh, I think I made a mistake here. Okay, let me delete this. All I want to do is just to copy this CSS code so that I am able to give that other this new container its own background color. So I'm just going to change this hex code here, come to colorhunt.co, pick up a new background color. Let me see which one I can go with for this one. So I'm just going to pick this one up so that it's unique. So I'm going to paste the hex code right here. All right, and then change the class name from LG to SM, so it's container SM. All right, save my work and then go back to my home page, the index.html file, and then everything here is fine. I'm just going to click save and go back to my browser. So here, let's refresh. Now we have the third container, and then this container here with this one, as I was explaining earlier, we are saying we want this container to take up 100% of the width up to the small breakpoint. Now let's go start from a small viewport. So on a small viewport, all these containers, as you can see, take up 100% of the width. Now let's enlarge and see the difference between these three containers. I'm enlarging the screen now. At around this point, as you can see, this container jumps. This is the breakpoint, the small breakpoint, and this purple container, as you can see, it is still touching or taking up 100% of the width. And then this one, as you can see, as I was explaining, its size changes all the time relative to the size of the screen. And then when we enlarge, as you can see, this is how these containers differ. And at this breakpoint, they now both or three of them, all of them look the same. And that is the difference between the LG and the container SM. Now let's take things further and see what else we have here in terms of these containers that are being offered to us by Bootstrap. Now we have container fluid. Now with container fluid, it has 100% width at all breakpoints. That is container fluid, so it doesn't change. It takes up 100% width at all times. So now let's put this also into practice. I'm going to copy, like I did earlier, this container here and paste it underneath here so that we have an extra container. I'm going to delete this class here from container SM to container fluid. Okay, so I'm also going to change here. It's going to be container fluid. I'm also going to give this new container a background color of its own. I'm just going to, let me copy this CSS code so that I'm able to give this new container its own background color. So the class name is a container fluid. Let me remove this hex code, go back to color hunt to pick up a different background color. So let me see, this time around I'm just going to go with this one here. So I've just copied the hex code and then I'm going to paste it inside here. Let me also include that hashtag sign. All right, let me save on my style sheet. Everything is fine. Go back to my home page, the index.html file where my containers are at, and then save my work here. Now let me go back to the browser and let's refresh and see if we've managed to successfully add that other container. Now we have 4 containers. Let's start from the small viewport size. On a small viewport, all these containers take 100% of the width. Now let me enlarge the viewport, as you can see, this new container is taking up 100% of the width all the time. It is not leaving the edge of the screen. So it is all the time taking up 100% of the width of the viewport, and that's what makes this container different from the rest. And that's it about the Bootstrap containers. If you found this video helpful, please subscribe to this channel and click the bell icon to be notified when new videos come out. Let's code again next time. Take care. Bye.